Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Gainesville Code Enforcement Special Magistrate hearings for Thursday, March the 9th, 2023. My name is Jefferson Braswell, and I've been appointed as the Special Magistrate pursuant to Chapter 162 Florida statutes to hear the code enforcement matters brought by the City of Gainesville. I usually have kind of an opening statement that I usually make, but I don't think, based on the agenda today, that'll be necessary. I'm going to just start with the calling the first case, which is a reduction in rescission request and a special magistrate. No, I don't know when to do that, but don't let me forget to do it. Special Magistrate 2021-026, City of Gainesville versus William E. and Joe Lee R. Beatty. Sir, will you please state your name for the record?
Pete Backhouse.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a reduction rescission request for the address of 4310 Northwest 13th Street, Special Magistrate Case 2021-026, and I am presenting. Parcel number 07295-000000. The owners of record are William Beatty and Joe Lee R. Beatty. Property zoning is BA and BUS, and the ownership was established by researching public records and documents. The location is on 13th Street, just north of north of 39th Avenue and off of the 6th Street extension, 4310.
Okay, I understand.
On 12/18/2020, Officer John Gates conducted an inspection of the property, found illegal outdoor storage in violation of zoning restrictions. Notice of violation was issued for Section 30-1.8, land use without a permit. Corrective action was to store all product in a completely enclosed structure or remove it from the property. As the violation was not corrected, you heard the case on May 13th of 2021. Guilty verdict was obtained, violation to be corrected by 7/26 of 21, or a fine of $50 a day assessed plus costs of $249.21. The property was placed in compliance September 1st, 2022. Fines accumulated to $20,100 plus the assessed costs, and the costs have been paid.
Hold on, stop. Just let me get. Okay, you can go ahead.
On March 3rd, myself and Acting DSD Director Forrest Edelton met with Stuart Cullen, who is here this morning to present, to talk about the delay bringing the property into compliance, which he explained was due to complications and time delays in obtaining proper permitting through the Development Review Board and City Development Review staff. The permit has been obtained, now allowing storage on the site.
And remind me of what they're storing. I think
pools, large pools, you'll see in a moment in the photographs that I present.
Okay.
Mr. Cullen requests a total rescission of the fines or at least a significant reduction due to the owners attempting to get the permit and delays not being their fault. Staff is recommending no reduction in the accumulated of fines when FW Swimming Pools, who is the business located on the property owned by Fareed Saad, applied for a zoning verification form, also known as a permit, in October of 2019 for outdoor storage of the pools. The request was denied, with specific comment written, no outdoor storage permitted. Mr. Saad elected to utilize outdoor storage in direct violation. After receiving the notice of violation in December of 2020, Mr. Saad was granted an extension of time, and the hearing did not occur until May of 2021, while they were attempting to get permission to store the pools. At your hearing, we had requested 30 days to come in compliance. You actually granted them 60, so we got more time again to come into compliance. 2 days before the time allowed by the magistrate expired, application was made to the Development Review Board to amend the site plan because the effort they had done previously to gain the permit was not successful. The first hearing before the Development Review Board resulted in denial of the application. The process was then restarted. Approval for the outdoor storage was received in August of 2022, and compliance was achieved as of September 1st, 2022. This was the original photo of the violation of the pools being stored on the property. Officer Boyd took the photo in December of 2020, and this is another photo of some of the pools that were at the location. In March, as we were preparing for the hearing before the extension was granted, Officer Gates took another photo showing the pools were still in the same location. They had been relocated on the property behind the fenced area, but they were still stored outside as of May when the hearing took place, and you found them guilty. This is the photo that was taken for compliance on September 1st of 2022 and reflects the storage that is now allowed under their permit. I went by yesterday and verified that the same storage is still being used. So they are in compliance with the terms of the permit. Obviously, that looks significantly different from what it was before.
So this is them in compliance here. Are we looking at a photo from 13th Street?
So this is off of 13th Street facing west.
And so this is allowed, that type of display?
Yes.
On 13th Street?
Yes. This is what they were granted once the permit was approved.
What kind of application was submitted, or should I
Should
I ask Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I think Mr. Cullen will be able to speak to that.
Okay.
So due to the disregard of the prohibition of outdoor storage and the pools being allowed to remain on the property the entire time of this process, even though it was specified in the corrective action to remove them, staff recommends no reduction of the accumulated fine.
And what's the amount of the fine?
$20,100. You do have a copy of the zoning verification form in your records specifying specifically that no outdoor storage was allowed.
I remember.
That is my presentation.
Okay.
I'll submit it as exhibit.
And that is admitted as Exhibit 1 to the record. Can I hear from the respondent, please? You swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Stuart Cullen. I'm a professional engineer and a consultant for both the BEATYs as well as the operator FW pools. I do have a short presentation, and it's probably best that I go through that, and then I'm happy to circle back and answer any specific questions that you may have.
Okay, I can't promise you I won't interrupt you if I have a question.
Please do, actually. I don't have a memorized script, so it shouldn't be that bad. So.
All right.
Of course,
And I'm looking at this one back behind if you're going to point.
Correct.
I can't see this one as well.
Understood.
Okay.
Yep, will do. So this is the special magistrate hearing. The background is just very similar to Pete's discussion, is that the original notice of violation was late in 2020. We did have the hearing in front of you in May of 2021, and that allowed us 60 days. You may remember we did have quite a bit of discussion of the available time based on the city development review process at that point of how long it would take us to get through the city development review process. As staff presented, the corrective availability for the location of where these pools were on this lot was to either remove or put them in an enclosed building. However, there is also the availability to have a site plan that allows outdoor storage. And the appropriate scenario in this, after working with city staff, was to get an approved site plan that allowed outdoor storage. However, it wasn't for the property that we're looking at on the left or the one where majority of the pools were stored. It was the property where the office was, because the way the site plan and the zoning reads is that you're allowed up to 25% of the principal building storage area on the site of where the building is for outdoor storage or display. Outdoor storage and display are synonymous, so they'll continue to use those as interchangeable. So originally the discussion was, and the application with city staff was to get the outdoor storage where the pools were stored. And once submitted, city staff goes, no, it can't be on the separate parcel. It has to be on the parcel where the office is itself. And we then went back and submitted through that process. And so the development review process is lengthy. It does require the first step. As staff indicated, we had that first step meeting before the last codes hearing, and then went through the application process itself with submitting the application. Then they require the fee to be paid. Then they open up the application in the project doc system, the permitting system or the review system. And we upload plans, we go through comments, and then we get assigned to DRB. So the first review process, we went through that entire process. This was the site plan that was submitted. And if we, I think this is the laser. Yep. Trying to remember which button is the laser. Not that one. That is the off button. Anyway, the blue box where the site plan is the location where the office is. And you can see where I have outlined and noted that the square footage of the office at 4322.
It's the top of the ring.
Top on the ring? Oh, there it is. Thank you.
No problem.
So this is the office that is occupied by the owner of the pool system. This location right here, this house was actually removed, and this location right here is where the pool storage was that we saw in the pictures previously.
Okay.
The original application included both these parcels, and city staff said, no, it has to be on the parcels. So we designated an area that was within the 25% area. We submitted this application. We came to this very room for a DRB hearing in September of 2021 after ultimately getting to that DRB hearing. It was arduous because of the response by city staff during that process. We submitted when we were supposed to. We asked for comments and finally got comments and discussions. After many delays, I have it written down in a whole list of all the discussions and lists of emails and things along those lines that I met with city staff.
Can I see it?
Sure. It's not great.
No, it's all right.
writing, but, yeah.
That's what I always ask people for. Let me see what you've done. So I'm just interested in seeing kind of what the timeline is. You can proceed.
So it's really the bottom half of that sheet is after the hearing and what it is. There's some lines on there that I added. And so at that development review board hearing, this was the only thing on the hearing. And it was a long, arduous hearing with city staff driving the board on all kinds of different directions in regards to the code enforcement and future enforcement of it, and how would we ensure this area would be the designated area, and all these other style regulations that wouldn't apply at all of, things like, doing it inside the building and things like that just were not applicable at all. And ultimately, through discussions with the board, we said, okay, well, let's just table this and let's work this out with city staff of cleaning up a few of these little items if that's what we need to do. I stood here and asked the board for that, let's table, and the board said, nope, we're not tabling it, and they denied it. So within a couple of days, I submitted into site plan review process 2, and I apologize, it moved on the screen a little bit. But I met with city staff and submitted this site plan, which is essentially the same as the previous site plan, just a little bit different with a little bit more detail that city staff said would help in the discussions with the board. And this was the supervisor's city planning staff, not the planner that had taken it to the board. And they're like, yeah, we'll shepherd it through. We'll go ahead and work with it and understand what that is and move it forward.
Now, are we in a different application
We're in a
process?
different
So
application
did you have
process.
to reapply?
They had to reapply. Correct.
And there's no limitation on that as far as waiting a
Not
year?
not for site plan approval. For zoning approvals, there's a
Yeah,
year.
right, I got
But not for site plan approval. Correct. And we looked at other alternatives and things along those lines, but that's ultimately where it was. We did go through that entire process. This process worked quicker. I'll go through some more timeframes as well. But then we did go to the August 30th hearing. It was a short hearing downstairs in room 16, and the DRB approved that. So
And what was the date on that?
that was August 30th of 2022, and you'll recognize that the compliance was September 1st,
Yeah,
just
see
a
that
day
here.
or two later.
Got it.
So in really drilling that back down to a sort of a timeline chart and looking at it differently, I blocked it out into really the 4 significant events that took the time frame itself. One of them was the original special magistrate hearing to the first DRB, and that was made until September 28th. Then immediately after that, until I made the submittal, which was actually 2 months, but you'll see in a moment that we actually contacted them within a week and met with them, generated the submittal, and had that submittal moving forward. And then the second submittal development review from November of 21 until August 30th, the hearing that we just talked about in 22 where it's approved, and then the compliance time. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if we look at those dates themselves, from the original special magistrate hearing to the first DRB was 138 days. And the date from that day to the resubmittal was 41 days. By the time we worked with city staff, understood what the next process was, and got that submittal in the process was 41 days. And so that's the 179 days that I've outlined here. Then on the second process, it was 297 days, and I'll explain a little bit of difference of why that is. But the real important piece is that from approval of the site plan to compliance on this site was 2 days. Everything was gone. The pools were moved over to the second site. Remember that the violation is not on the same site that we're getting the site plan on. And that was very particular. We didn't want to have 2 out of compliance sites. We only wanted to have one that was in the process in order to maintain the business, and then not to have an out of compliance issue on where we were ultimately getting the site plan from. So that's why it worked that way. So really what happened? What was the process? Why do we have these issues? And so the first DRB or DRB process is typically about 90 days. As we talked about in the last hearing, you had given us 60. We expected that, okay, we were going to be about 30 days over that. The process to that DRB was 179 days. It was just under 180, almost twice as long or just twice as long as a normal DRB process. That is what you see written on that piece of paper. Emails, coordination, trying to ask the city, where are we? Can we get this moving? Why haven't we done anything? And coordinations with Lawrence Calderon, you know, why aren't we moving forward? Where are my comments? What's not happening here? Why can't we go forward on it? That was the 179 days. I have documented emails and things along those lines that I can produce in trying to get that process to ultimate to the DRB approval. The second process, we submitted Like I said, within a week after the denial of the first DRB, met with city staff, actually not submitted, but met with city staff and determined the path forward, met with Andrew and Brittany, and determined that it was to follow a slightly cleaner site plan. You saw the difference on them, and generally they were same, but a cleaner, more applicable style version, let's say, in order to review exactly what we're going to do. Within 30 days, the application was submitted, which created the 11/8 date. There was a large delay in paying the fee, and that is 100% on the owner. And so if you remember, the process itself is that we submit the application, the city staff says, okay, yes, here's the fee, which is around $2,000. Once that fee is paid, they open up the process in Project Docs, the review permitting system itself. And then I upload the documents to that, and the staff review begins at that point. That was the time frame of a delay of not getting that fee paid, and so the application just wasn't moving forward until March of 2022. Staff acted on that very quickly. It was ready for DRB within 90 days in June of 2022. Staff contacted me on June 15th and said, did you post the signs for the June DRB, which was going to be 2 weeks later? At that point, we were 10 days away from DRB, and I responded by saying we had not posted those signs, and therefore it was determined we couldn't go to that DRB because of the required advertisement posting requirements. I don't feel really great about mentioning the discussion between when it was approved to go and missing that deadline, but what happened was in early May of 2022, I had open heart surgery. I was out of commission essentially for 6 weeks. And so I missed coordinating with staff, and staff didn't get back with me till 3 or 4 days after that posting was, so we missed the June deadline. So we said, okay, let's go to July. We'll post, we'll move to July. Well, in July of 2022 was one of the first DRB hearings that was not Zoom for COVID. My wife and I were in North Carolina visiting a terminal uncle. In fact, he passed away about a month and a half after that. And so it was not Zoom. We could not go to that July hearing. So it was scheduled for the August hearing, which we went to and was approved. And so there was an additional 90 days, those two hearings, that we were not able to go to because of the missed posting and then the July hearing not being able to be on Zoom. And it was just a decision that really had been made by City Commission to stop those Zoom hearings just a few days or about a month before that, and we weren't able to do that. So when we look at the actual time itself, there was 60 days that was allowed after the special magistrate hearing in May of 2021, which would take us to July 24th in 2021. And we were in compliance in September of 2022. That's a total of 404 days, that whole time frame. The request for reduction is because of the first DRB process is, I can't state it any other way, is that it was a waste of time because staff at the City of Gainesville did not provide us direction or move the process in a quick enough way, as well as, in my opinion, and I've used this term a couple of times, committed professional malpractice at the DRB in directing that board as the clerk for the City Commission and ultimately receiving that denial. The second DRB process went very quick. It was, with the time we were ready for the DRB to the DRB was the 60 days, but there was an additional 90 because of those 2 missed hearings. So the request is the 179 days plus the 90 days, which were not at the fault of the owner. All the rest of the time to take to pay the application fee and things along those lines, yes, those were the fault of the owner, but not the 179 days. That was, in my opinion, city staff issue, as well as the 2 missed meetings, unfortunately, because of the Zoom and the posting issue itself. So the request for reduction is the 269 days, or to only pay for the 135 days. The goal is compliance. The site is in compliance now. The staff showed you a picture. This is another one of the site in compliance. With the fines, with the compliance, there's no need for the fines. The fines themselves aren't there to cover any city costs. The fines aren't there to do anything other than be the hammer for achieving compliance. During this time, we were actively working the entire time within a process with the city in order to obtain compliance. It was delayed by the city staff, as well as there was some operator delay. So the general request is, hey, we're in compliance, can full dismissal, the fines be warranted? If you don't find that, the request is for a reduction of the 269 days, which in our opinion was primarily caused by the city staff itself. The rest of it, we can understand, was owner basis, and work through that. That's the basis of the request.
I understand. I do, and I'm glad you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling better. It seems to miss the mark a little bit, because you had your client who was instructed no outdoor storage, that then just proceeded to violate violate what he had been specifically not to do. No matter how long it took, I mean, whether it was, I didn't give you guys 60 days to go through the process. I gave you 60 days to bring the property into compliance. And so it was for the owner to take the charge on that. And if I understand what's going on here, that he effectively just left the other property out of compliance, left it outdoor storage, acted as if he had never been to this proceeding, and then just waited until you got finished with the process. And I understand.
Right.
I feel your pain.
Can I address that a little bit?
But really, this is, I guess what I'm missing, or it sounds like the presentation is missing, I should say, is that what did the owner do to bring the other property into compliance, and why didn't he move those pools? And I understand there's money there, but now understand, it's a competition, right? Is he just sitting there saying, well, if I move the pools and I have to put them in an outdoor storage somewhere else off site, so I got to pay somebody to do that. I'm potentially going to lose sales, and it's going to cost me thousands of dollars to bring the property in compliance? Or do I just ignore the city and the orders of the magistrate, and that way I'll come back and ask for forgiveness, and then maybe it won't cost me as much as I think it will by not having my pools on display? And so he just like, I think it's going to cost me more. I'm just going to leave it out of compliance, and I don't really care. And that's kind of where I see the case.
Understood.
Okay.
And so I can add a little bit of color to that, so to speak.
Sure.
The gross negligence, so to speak, in the early pictures that staff showed you of multiple pools all over the place was eliminated. And the picture you see now with the 3 or 4 pools up front is all that was there within 60 days. And
So he just left those there though without permission.
just those in display on the property next door.
And he put the rest of the inventory
So-
back behind that fence is
No,
what you're saying?
they were taken off site.
Okay.
So it was reduced from hundreds of pools to the 4. The square footage of that's allowed in outdoor storage. Because it's an integral portion of the business itself to have that visibility.
So he made a calculated decision. I'm going to violate it, but I'm not going to violate it as bad as I was before.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was significantly reduced to what we expected to be approved. And so recognize it 100%, yes, that is absolutely correct, and terminology is appropriate as a calculated decision. The calculated decision was not to get a denial, though. Calculated decision was not to have be essentially sideswiped by city staff at a DRB hearing. And we had to re-go through that process. So that's why that expected first process or those numbers of days were not applicable to what the owner was expecting. Understood, and that's why it's a reduction request. Sure, a full one, understand we're past that. Let's look at the reduction portion of it. The reduction is if we had gone through just the process of being approved, it would have been that 135 days. That's reasonable. That's an expected fine that achieved compliance. It was the other section that we were not able to do because of city staff. That wasn't the calculated part of it. The calculated part of it was 135 days.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, I would like to, since I've considered it, I think it would be appropriate that this be admitted to the record. Do you want to take a photograph or something of it? I mean, we can do it afterwards.
Yeah,
or
that
you
would
can
be
do it
perfect.
now.
Yep.
But I don't mean to take it from you, but
No, I understand. Yeah.
but if I've considered it and I see that there, it's very conscientious approach to your scope of the work and to continuing to I call it making your way through the bureaucratic morass of planning and zoning and so forth. And like I said, I feel that, but I'm more concerned. Here's how I see it. Okay. You have a business that's not in compliance, right? Even after the first denial, right? Okay, so you move through 135 days. What? We're going to get denied? What do we do in response? See, there's a part of me that feels like the boards that are reviewing the applications should not even really proceed until there's compliance. Right? I mean, they're sitting there analyzing this, and you have an owner that's making a concerted decision to say, I'm going to leave it in, I'm not going to bring it into compliance because I'm worried about the economic impact it has on me. And so from the city's viewpoint, I think we cannot have people choosing to comply with the rules and regulations under those circumstances. So there's no question in my mind at this juncture that some penalty is appropriate. Now, do you have something else you wanted to say? You may proceed, Mr. Backhouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, in terms of Mr. Cullen's timeline, I would say that this actually began in October of 2019 when the original denial of the zoning verification letter happened, and no action was taken to try and get that revised to have any kind of on-site storage approved. So from October of 2019 to December of 2020, we had what was going on both lots. When we issued the notice of violation in December of 2020 until March of 2021, both lots continued to be used. There was nothing done at that point to relocate any of those pools. By the time we got to May, the pools were located off the second lot, but there was still the violation continuing. And as you stated, it was very clear that the way to remedy the violation, to have stopped all this from happening, was to take the pools someplace else where they could be stored or put them in an enclosure. The decision was made from October 2019 through December or August of 2022 to operate in violation of the ordinance and in violation of your direction.
Right. I see that. And now, but understand also that I see the, you know, we see a lot of, and I do consider this to be kind of, you know, blatant disregard for the regulations, right? But I also see that $20,000, I mean, when we look across the types of violations and the impact that this has on society, and we look at some of our other cases, you know, that seems to me to be a lot of penalty for non-violation. I mean, we have crimes committed and people aren't penalized that much. So,
But we don't deal with those crimes.
no, I
We
understand.
deal with the city
I
ordinance.
understand.
I'll also address one other thing that Mr. Cullen brought up. The fines are a hammer only in terms of getting people to come into compliance to create the disincentive to remain out of compliance. $50 a day was not a huge fine. The only reason it accumulated to $20,000 is because the amount of time it remained out of compliance.
Well, and I guess.
Which goes back to your argument, I'm sorry to interrupt, that, you know, this was a price of doing business that was assessed by the business owner.
No, and I want you to respond to this, you know, as you see it. What I understand was going on over the course of years, this last year and a half, I counted up, it looked like it was about 15, 16 months, is in effect what we see in the photograph. Now, it hadn't been approved, and it was, you know, it was in disregard for the regulations, but ultimately, he had approved the display that has been there for the last 15 months. So even though it was not technically in compliance, it was able to be approved.
I understood. I just don't want the period before that ignored, that it was out of compliance as well, and the decision made to operate in that manner.
Well, I have to say that there's a part of me that in evaluating the appropriate penalty that that there is some measure of mitigation that what they had been doing for the last 15 months was ultimately approvable. Now, I do not like it that there's the, you know, ignoring the zoning compliance. I mean, I think your client knew right from the beginning. I don't think there was any ambiguity that for him to offload those pools and put them there and leave them open and to, you know, to do these things, completely inappropriate conduct. And I cannot abide by that. And compliance with the regulations, especially from the businesses. I mean, you know, so much of what we deal with in this room is what I call poverty-driven, by people that really just don't have the ability to comply. They don't have the economic horsepower to do the job, get their properties cleaned up, keep them in compliance. This is not that case. This is just, I'm going to choose to do this because it's in my economic best interest, and really I don't care what the city does. That's why I'm ready to rule. Anybody have anything else to say?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna admit this is Exhibit 2, and I don't, and if you want to take a photo of it. Okay. So we'll admit that as Exhibit 1, and Exhibit 2, excuse me. Thank you. And I'm going to reduce the fine to $10,000. And I hope that that's a sufficient penalty to where your client would understand that,
If
that,
Mr. Cullen would like, we can submit his PowerPoint for the record as well. I have a copy of it.
yeah, let's do that. That'd be Exhibit 3. Okay. We'll render that order and it can be, do we put timeframes on when that needs to be paid?
You can.
I'll reduce it to $10,000 to be paid within 20 days, and if it's not paid within 20 days, then the fine will be returned to its original value and of $20,100. And it will still be accumulating at that point, so we'll give them 20 days to pay.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad you're feeling better. Next case is Special Magistrate number 2022-139, City of Gainesville versus Gainesville Land and Trust. I'll go back to it. But, hold on a second. Mr. Gray, what are you here for?
I'm observing your honor.
Okay, thank you. You have a good day. Officer Gatto, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may proceed. Oh, please state your name for the record.
My name is Lita Gatto. I'm a code enforcement officer for City of Gainesville.
Okay.
I'm here today to present a special magistrate case 2022-139. The address is 4741 Northwest 27th Terrace and investigated by myself. Property information is parcel number 06076-200-040. The owner is 4741 Northwest 27th Terrace, Gainesville Land Trust. Property zoning is RSF2, and ownership was established by researching official public records and documents. Location of the property is just south of 53rd Avenue. Up there, here's the property. And it is just east of, this is 34th Boulevard, or also known as 121. Summary, on 11/29 of 2022, I received a citizen complaint in reference to the location having a hole in the roof. Upon inspection, I observed rot in the front porch fascia, window screens not properly attached or actually are missing. There were electrical outlets throughout the house that were open, exposed without covers. A kitchen ventilation hood was hanging detached from anchoring. Exterior porch door was off the hinges, and the porch screen had large tears. The rear yard fencing was in disrepair. Rubbish was accumulated in the rear of the yard. There was a metal sheath at the rear wall that was not properly secured. Soffit was exposed in the rear of the home, and an exterior south wall of the home had rotting, and a utility box which was not securely attached to the wall. The tenant had moved out the day after that inspection. Here are photos that were taken by myself that accurately reflect the conditions of the home at the time. This is the front of the home. This photo is over the front entry door. This is the fascia that I said was rotting. This is the south-facing wall that the siding is deteriorated, that literally you could put a pen through just like by touching it. This is the box, utility box, the meter boxes that I said they couldn't stay on the wall because the wall was deteriorated. Here's some kind of base molding that this, I believe, is either on the eastern wall, or this may be a north-facing section, but there was some siding on other parts of the home and around the base area. Ordinances that were violated are Section 13-304.1, general exterior of a structure shall be maintained in good repair, structurally sound and sanitary so as not to pose a threat to the public health, safety, welfare. The corrective action was to repair the fascia, the soffit, the roof, and properly secure the metal sheath to the wall. Ordinance Section 13-304.6, which is exterior walls, as exterior wall shall be free from holes, breaks, loose rotting material, properly, coated and maintained to avoid deterioration. The corrective action was to properly replace all the rotting exterior walls, trims, baseboard. Ordinance with violation of 604.3 electrical systems hazards, where it's found that electrical systems in a structure constitute a hazard to the occupants or the structure. The corrective action was to secure the electrical meter box and to repair all the electrical outlets throughout the facility that were open or exposed or danger. So case timeline was back in November 29th of 2022. I met with the tenant and inspected and observed the multiple violations.
So it was occupied.
It was occupied at the time. The tenant moved out the day after inspected. She had called. She said she was going to be leaving. She wasn't going to be there anymore. So I came and met with her and did the inspections.
Did she tell you why she was moving out?
I believe she moved out the day after the inspection.
Did she tell you why?
Because she was unsatisfied with the conditions and the non-repair of the conditions of the home and the owners not bringing it up to adequate conditions, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So in December 1st of 2022, I issued the notice of violation with a correction date of January 1st of 2023. The notice was posted at the City Hall and the property and sent first class and certified mail. On December 2nd of 22, I called Daniel Pothouse. There was no answer, and I was not able to leave a message, but I did find an email to a Chuck Pothouse, and so I notified him of the notice of violation. He responded, and as a result, I forwarded a copy of the violation along with a few photos via email. On the 12th of December in 2022, Mr. Pothouse requested a meeting at the property, then canceled the meeting, but we did speak on the phone and went over some of the violations. On the 29th, I drove by the property. The conditions appeared the same. I called Daniel Pothouse, and he stated he had a couple of estimates but not signed a contract yet, and he requested an extension. On January 3rd of 2023, Mr. Pothouse sent copies of a couple of estimates, but neither were signed. I spoke with the owner and stated that to receive the extension that we needed signed contracts with a start completion work timeline. So on January 9th, I re-inspected the property and found violations had not been corrected. As a result, I requested a special magistrate hearing. On January 30th of 2023, service was achieved for the notice of hearing by posting at the property and at the City Hall. In February 8th of 2022, I met with the property owner and at the site, and we went over several of the violations. He had a permit to repair the roof, and he corrected a number of violations at the time, like I believe it was the electrical outlets and the ventilation hood. There was a few other things, and that was last month. It was here, and you granted the continuance. So on February 20th of 2023, I re-inspect the property, and the rear roof, the soffit, and the fascia had been repaired, but several other violations remained. On 2020 of 2023, I served the notice of hearing for today by posting at the property in the City Hall. The 28th of February of 2023, I re-inspected, and I saw the window screenings and the patio screening and the patio door had been replaced. I spoke again with the owner regarding the magistrate process, making him aware of what would happen if the remaining violations weren't completed, and the penalties and administrative fees. So he was aware of that. Then yesterday, on the 3rd, March 8th of 2023, I inspected the property, and the following repairs still required: the fascia over the front entry door area, the siding on the south wall, and some of the base trim as well, the baseboards around the various parts of the property, plus the reinstallation of the utility box on the south. Since that time, so here are some of the photos. This is just the front of the home. This photo is taken yesterday, March 8th of 2023. So this is the fascia that still continues to need to be repaired, that's over the front entry door. This is the south-facing wall, the one that's in very bad deteriorated condition, as you can kind of see, like even under the window, that's parts missing. And the utility box, it's not properly connected to the wall. So I did speak to these are my recommendations, but I did speak to the owner late yesterday, sometime yesterday afternoon, and again this morning. And my recommendation is adjudication of guilt to access administrative costs of $291.97 plus other costs accrued. I've written allow 10 days to bring the violation to compliance, and if not achieve the compliance, then assess a daily fine of $50. But I would be amenable to alter the 10 days to a little bit more, because I did see this morning, and he'll show you, I'm sure he'll come up here, he has a signed contract to have that siding replaced, and I'm assuming the baseboards and trim, but the start date, completion date are around the 24th, 26th of this month, and with the fact findings and signing and recording, I think it'll be a little bit close. So, you know, he's been working on this the whole time. So I would be amenable to, you know, maybe allowing him 20 days or, you know, to bring it into compliance. I think that he'll be able to accomplish it, assuming weather is good. That's up to you, of course.
Is there anybody occupying the property?
No, no one has occupied it. And since
Now, what would you say about whether you think it could be occupied or should be occupied? I mean, I'm not getting a sense of how these things impact the interior.
these things, the utility box is not properly attached to the wall. I
So
mean,
that's unsafe. And then you mentioned some,
but I'm sure that, well, from what he told me, that he'd spoken with utilities companies. So GRU would be the persons that would come out and reattach that to the wall once he's made the wall secure or proper.
see, what I'm thinking is that we could link the compliance to making it to where it can be occupied. So to the extent that the owner would agree that no one can move in, you know, obviously this needs to be repaired because of, you know, the neighbors and the impact of the property on all the adjacent properties. But it seems like to me that if nobody's living there, we don't have any life safety issues, and that would provide the owner with some time to get it repaired, and give the owner incentive to get it repaired, because he can't rent it until it's in compliance, until it's deemed in compliance.
Well, I would prefer to just leave it with giving him an extra 20 days or 30 days, and I think he'll bring it all into compliance. The thing is that prior to this, at the time when I inspected it, which is not related to the code specifically, I would enforce, but I did notify the rental housing department that there was not a rental housing permit, and she had been living there for nearly a year. So he has since now, because I explained to him that I was forwarding the information to that department, and from what I understand, that he has since then achieved the rental housing permit, but he was renting it prior without the rental housing license, which would be part of the inspection process for the inside, or put him into the loop for that. So, I mean, I have confidence that he'll do it.
There will
But
be an inspection process before anybody else moves in, is that what you're telling me?
not before. I was at it's a 4-year rotating inspection, and it's random how the sites are selected for inspection. So, but of course, it's up to you, sir, but I just would say give him another instead of 10 days, that I think he could bring this in compliance if he had another 20 or even 30 days, just so that his contract he has, that if there was, long as there's good weather and the contractor is able to complete the work, the thing is, this is outdoor type work that I don't know if he can do that in GRU, come back and hang that up. I don't know if they'll be able to get it done, you know, it'll be close, kind of, with when you take the administrative part of the fact
Well, I may-
findings and signing and,
I'll hear from the owner and
yeah,
maybe I even grant. you
okay.
know. Let me hear from the owner. You want to come forward and speak to it? Please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record, sir.
Daniel Pothast.
You may proceed, sir.
The only correction I'd like to make to the presentation she made is the correction date or the installation date for these remaining items. The contractor gave me was 4/24 through 4/26. So it's not going to be until April 24th, not March 24th. I searched hard and wide to try to find a licensed insured contractor with the city of Gainesville because I'm
Can
sure
I
as-
see you, can I see what you got?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
I will say that I probably could have brought it in compliance sooner if I was able to find a licensed contractor that could pull a permit and do the job in a sooner time. I had plenty of handymen that weren't technically licensed with the city of Gainesville that could have done it for significantly cheaper than what these licensed contractors are, but they weren't licensed with the city, and the city code is if it's over 100 square feet of siding, it has to have a permit pulled on it, and that was the issue that I ran into.
Are you going to repaint the entire house?
I am, correct. Once the siding is repaired. The siding, the fascia, and that electrical box, once the siding is actually fixed, it'll be reattached and secured properly, and then we're gonna paint the full exterior.
And then, and I guess in the meantime, no one's going to live in the home?
No, sir, so the utilities are turned off, not only the water, but the electrical, and we're not gonna rent it until everything is brought into compliance.
And so you're saying, I'll get this back to you. You're saying April the 28th is your contract date?
He gave me, he put me on the schedule for the 24th, the start date, and the finish date of 4/26, and I did request.
And then after that, you got to paint?
Correct.
And you have the paint lined up?
Yeah, well, I have a painting contractor, so as soon as it's ready to go, we're gonna get him on it. Generally speaking, I use like a handyman, and even me and my guys sometimes will help him to paint the exterior. I don't have a contract for that as of yet, but it is gonna get done, because as soon as it's done, you're gonna have different color wood, you know. You're gonna have the fresh siding, because it's just repair that he's doing. He's not actually replacing, the entire siding of the home. It's only the areas that are in disrepair, the full south wall, a
The
section.
the soffit, the things that we.
Yeah, so the soffit's been repaired. The only issue now is the fascia that she pointed out,
The
which
south
is also
side.
wood repair, which is what he's also addressing. So the only issues that are remaining is some small fascia above the front door that he's going to repair, that's wood. And then he's gonna replace all of the siding, which is T111 wood siding. And once that is done, the electrical box, which she pointed out, is gonna get properly secured to the wall. And at that point, it's gonna be exterior paint, and we're gonna try to go ahead and rent the place. And only other thing I'd like to point out is that while the property definitely did not look good in those pictures, it looked pretty rough. We purchased the property from the federal bankruptcy court in that condition. And now that doesn't excuse us from not making the repairs or having the rental permit. All of those things are true. But it wasn't as if we let the property fall into complete disrepair. You know what I mean? And we purchased it in that condition, so to speak. So
How long ago did you purchase it?
we purchased it in 2020. So
2020.
it was quite some time. And we honestly, I live in Tampa, and that's not an excuse, but the property's here in Gainesville. I didn't know the actual condition, like how bad it was, until actually personally coming up and taking a look at it. The only reason that the tenant, I think, called the city was because there was issues with rent, and we posted a 3-day notice basically saying we're going to start eviction process, et cetera. She was unhappy with the condition of the home, rightfully so, and that's why she contacted the city and came out, and then she moved out right afterwards. And we haven't rented it since. I've had the utilities turned off, and I know that I have to have all these things addressed prior to us being able to rent it and get back in good standing with the city. So that's just where it is.
Sorry? Okay. Yeah, we need to have the city's presentation included as Exhibit 1 to the record. Thank you. No, I'm going to leave that with him.
I have copies. I mean, if you want it, you can have it.
I wouldn't mind having it
Sure,
as
it's
Exhibit
just-
2. If you have a copy, I don't want to.
That's actually the email showing the date that he said.
Okay.
And I also requested with him based on the timeline, if at all possible, if anybody was to cancel or there's any openings in his schedule to potentially move me up, and that's just kind of where it is at the moment.
So what's the city's position on granting them 60 days if they agree that no one's going to occupy the property until it's been fully re-inspected and complies with the,
City has no objection to that.
okay. You know what we're interested in you doing is, you know, I'm asking about the paint. Of course,
Sure.
paint's not really
Right.
necessarily within the jurisdiction. But, you know, it's important to everybody. And the way I look at something like this is, you know, they've been living with that property in that condition, your neighbors.
An eyesore, yes, sir.
You know, and it's like, you
I
know,
understand.
come on, fix it
I
up.
completely
you know?
understand.
Get in there. And so I'm encouraged when I hear you say, we're going to do this, we're going to, you know, we're going to upgrade it, we're going to do it right, we're going to get it painted, it's
sir.
going to look new. Hopefully, you know, get some landscaping and do some
Yeah, we're gonna
things to
clean it
really make it attractive, and that's in the betterment
Yes, sir.
of the neighborhood and everybody.
And it improves our home value.
And it improves your home value, improves everybody else's
Indeed.
home values, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's kind of what we're here for,
Understand?
right? Is to force that level of compliance. I don't want anybody living in that property in the
No.
condition that it's in,
I understand.
okay?
Yeah, I have all the utilities turned off anyway, so nobody could occupy it.
So, I'm going to go ahead and rule, and I'm going to adjudicate the respondent guilty. I'm going to assess administrative costs of $291.97 plus all other costs accrued. I'm going to allow 60 days.
Okay?
By my count, that should be enough
Yes.
to bring the violations into compliance. You know, let me change that. I'm going to allow 70 days to bring the violations into compliance. And what I'd like to see is that the property's painted when you call for the inspection.
Yes, sir.
You know,
That's fair.
you got to correct the things that are pointed, but I'd like to see the property in you know, finished condition. But if compliance is not achieved within that 70 days, I'm going to assess a daily fine of $100 a day.
That's fair.
Okay.
It will be done.
Okay. And you know, if something happens and you get delayed, a contractor gets delayed, you know, something quirky happens, you can always come back and seek. You know, you can tell me why you were late,
Yes, sir.
and I'll take that into consideration. But hopefully, we'll just make that. I mean, I think it has the potential to be a really cute property,
Agreed.
and to the benefit of everybody around it. So hopefully, this is a chance to kind of get in there and invest in it and bring it up to the standards of the neighborhood.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to proceed with the rest. I think that next case is Special Magistrate number 2023-004, and that is that doesn't have a name on it. That case is dropped, so that's probably enough of a pronouncement on that. Next item is Special Magistrate number 2023-001, Garibaldi and Garibaldi. This is Officer Jones. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Officer Lorenzo Jones, Code Enforcement, City of Gainesville.
You may proceed, sir.
Special Magistrate, case number 20-23001. The address is 1115 Northeast 3rd Street, investigated by me. Property information, parcel number 10267-001-000. The owners Garibaldi and Garibaldi. Property zoning RSF3. Ownership was established by researching official public records and documents. The property is located just east of Main Street. So Main Street right here. And it's in the, just east of it, right to the other side.
Okay.
On 12/16/2022, I conducted an inspection of the home from the right-of-way. There was no noticeable violations observed. The homeowner invited me onto the property to see the back of the residence. I discovered an accumulation of rubbish in the yard. The homeowner stated that she was going through the items to get them disposed of, but had not finished. There was also a strong odor coming from the rear of the property that was evident during the inspection. This is the front patio area. When I walked up, it was hidden behind a car, so I couldn't see it from the road. So, and this is the backyard. So this is the trash along the line. There's something right here. It's the other side of the yard.
So what's in the back? If you went through that, what does that open up on Main Street? On business, to the back of businesses on Main Street?
No, it's off the 2nd Street. So it's like it's Main Street and 2nd Street, and it's in Duck Pond area.
Okay.
So it's in the neighborhood area.
Okay.
This is on the side of the house when I walked up from the side. The ordinance violated was 3081, accumulation of rubbish and garbage. Exterior property and premises in the interior of every structure shall be free from any accumulation of rubbish and garbage. Corrective action to remove all rubbish and trash from the property. Keep it clean regularly in accordance with city codes and ordinances. The case timeline, 12/16, I conducted an initial inspection and observed a large accumulation of trash and rubbish throughout the property. There was also a strong ammonia smell coming from the piles of trash. That's what I determined when I was there. 12/16/2022, I issued a notice of violation and achieved service by posting the property and the city hall with the notice of violation. On 1/27/2023, I conducted a re-inspection of the property. The rubbish and odor was still present at the location. At this time, I requested a hearing for special magistrate. On 2/2/2023, code enforcement was named in a warrant produced by Alachua County Animal Services to allow inspection of the interior of the residence. Upon entering the dwelling, it was discovered that the home was in total disarray. It was notably apparent that there was an excessive amounts of cats in the house and an overpowering smell of ammonia. Cat urine and feces were in every room of the home, along with copious amounts of garbage. The resident was difficult to maneuver through due to the piles of trash, and it was a clear infestation of roaches and spiders throughout the home. On 2/17, I posted the property in the city hall with a notice of hearing for the magistrate. And on 3/8, I did my final re-inspection of the location and found that the violation was still present. This is the images of the interior of the home when we went in. This is one of the rooms. So the smell, I'm pretty sure the smell I was.
So the owner just let you in, though? Huh?
Well, she had to let them in because they had a warrant to go in. That they was retrieving the animals that were in the home. So Alachua County had a warrant to take all the animals out of the home. So she had a bunch of cats living in the house with her. So that was what the
So effectively you were invited along with the police and with animal control?
Yes, sir.
Was there anybody else with you? Do you remember?
It
Or was
was
it just y'all, just the three?
GFR, Gainesville Fire Rescue was there. Yeah, and that was it. Just GFR, GPD, and Alachua County, and us.
All right. Okay, thank you.
This is what I took on the second. No, this one I went back to my re-inspection. She still hadn't really cleaned up. She started moving stuff around, but you know, same thing. This is what I took yesterday. I went yesterday. She at least got some of the stuff moved up from under the car porch, but it's still, you know, the smell was still there because, you know, it's the smell coming from inside the house, clearly. So you got the yard, backyard cleaned up, half of it at least, and that's the other side. So she's still moving stuff around. She moved some stuff behind her shed over here. It's back in the wooded area, so I told her she had to get it cleaned up, you know. But staff recommendation, adjudication of guilt, assess administrative cost of $387.41 plus all costs accrued, allow 30 more days to bring violation in compliance, and if compliance is not achieved, assess a fine of $50 a day.
And the owner knew that this was going on today?
Yes, sir. I talked to her yesterday while she was still out there cleaning. She said that she wouldn't be able to make it. So, but I told her that you know, she needed to try to come if she could, but I don't think she has any transportation. She's a lot older, so.
Why don't you describe Miss Garibaldi?
Okay, Ms. Garibaldi is about 5'2". She's about, I don't know, about 70 years old, and she kind of have a hard time moving around, but she just an elderly lady that live by herself for the most part.
Yeah. Yes, anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things.
Okay, come on forward.
Okay.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name for the record.
So I'm Supervisor Samantha Norris, and how this originally came to us is we received complaints from the neighbors in regards to the odor of urine and cat feces coming from the backyard, drifting over.
How many cats are we talking?
So,
17, like that.
right, so.
15, 16, 17?
Right, so that's how we initially got this complaint for the odor and the debris in the backyard. And then ironically, within just a few days after that, I received a call from Julie Johnson. She is the director of Alachua County Animal Services, kind of requesting our help with this because this was a debris hoarding and a cat hoarding situation. So they went through their process to obtain a warrant, which we were named in the warrant, along with Animal Services, GFR, GPD, and that such. So it was uncomfortable for us and for Miss Garibaldi with the conditions on the inside of the house. She was offered multiple services to help her, which she declines. So part of the problem that we're still having is she has attempted some cleanup, but now she is, for whatever reason, opening the windows and the doors to the residents, and all the things that are happening inside. Now the smell is even worse because now that's coming out of the house into the neighboring properties. They did remove, I believe it was 14 cats from her and several deceased cats that were inside and outside of the residence. So she has made an attempt with the cleanup, but unfortunately, because again, the condition of the inside of the home, it's gonna take quite a bit more effort to stop the odor. And that's what's bothering the neighbors the most at this point.
So why the 30 days? I'm inclined to just go ahead and not.
Here's, I think, a little bit of our problem. So she has made an effort to clean up some of the rubbish in the back, but there are still some items outside that she's taken from inside to outside that, unless they're thoroughly clean, they have this odor on them. And then And we don't have the right, sir, to tell her you have to keep your windows closed. We don't have the right to tell her that. But unfortunately, because of the condition of the home, if she chooses to open her windows or her door, that odor is just gonna continue to be a problem.
Okay. And certainly not, I'm not without compassion for this, but of course, you know, as I've stated earlier in this proceeding, you know, our duties are really to the neighbors and, you know, to maintaining the, you know, quality and lifestyle. And trying to create compliance. And I will tell, I'll state on the record, I seriously doubt anything I do here is going to inspire any kind of compliance, but I'm going to do what I think is best in the best interest of those that live around
It would be
her.
helpful if she would agree to accept some services, but at this point, she's unwilling to do that.
Okay. Well, then my ruling will be, I'm going to adjudicate the respondent guilty. I'm going to assess administrative costs of $387.41 plus all other costs accrued. I'm going to allow 10 days to bring the property into compliance, and if compliance is not achieved, I'm going to assess a fine of $100 a day. And if, you know, it comes down to needing to have those reduced or whatever, then, you know, they can approach us. I think we've shown ourselves to always be open to trying to help, but compliance needs to be achieved in these circumstances. The presentation will be admitted as Exhibit 1. I see nothing else on the agenda. Therefore, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.